Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Texas Outlaw Running Talk Show. This is your host, Briston Rains. And today we have a super special guest on. He's the winner of the Raccoon 100 2022, and his name is Rob Landauer. And Rob ran at sub 15 hours. He ran under 15 hours for 100 miles. Not only that, but he has an amazing life story. He goes on these crazy bike trips, and he tells us all of these crazy stories on this show. And so I'm so excited for y'all to be able to hear some of the stories that we talk about on the show. Before it starts, I do want to note that we do have a Patreon, and we do an episode every single month, and we have a special guest on. And if y'all guys want to support the show, if you think I'm doing a good job here and you want to support the show, go ahead, scroll down, click the link below, and subscribe to our Patreon. It's only $2 or $3 a month, and it really helps cover the show and help us keep doing what we're doing. And also with that, if you're listening to Apple Podcasts, if you can, go ahead and scroll down, leave us a rating. And all the ratings we're going to be able to read on the next podcast, and we're going to shout you guys out. So if you're a Patreon or you leave a rating, you'll get a shout out in the next episode. But that's enough of that. Here's Rob. Rob, I want you to tell me a little bit about your running story or your endurance story, because just like we were talking about before the show started, you're a cyclist as well. And so tell us where all the endurance sports kind of started.
Okay, you want the long version or the short version?
Give
Or
us a long
something in
version.
between?
We'll take the
Long
long
version. All right. Well, for one thing, I was not into running or distance cycling or anything like that when I was growing up. I was in band. Um, but the short version of that is I think a lot of my discipline when it comes to running comes from band, is the habit of daily practice and slow improvement, and you're not going to reach your goal next week. That's always true about playing a musical instrument, but you have to practice every day if you want to get to your goal eventually, and the same thing is true for distance running. So I think a little bit of that mental foundation was installed by band. But I got into running when I was in college because my dorm happened to be right next to an outdoor track, and I thought, oh, hey, you know what, I could just jog a mile every day and keep off the freshman weight gain and all that. So I did. I would go out there and just jog a mile. And after 2 years, I was jogging a mile and a half. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty far, you know. And but I was getting faster, so that was something. And it wasn't until my third year of college that I had this roommate who was a pretty good runner. He had done a half marathon in a decent time, under 2 hours. And so to me, I just thought he was a god because he runs 10 times as far as I do. And he goes, hey, you run, right? You know, you should come run with me. And because I run with the UT Marathon Club. And I'm going, David, I don't run like you do. And he goes, oh, come on. It's our, like, I'm out of shape because I didn't run all summer club run. And you've been running all summer, right? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, you can hang. And I'm like, all right. And I go, how far are we going anyway? He goes, 3 miles, which is twice as far as I had ever run in my life.
Yeah.
But I hung in there, and I wasn't the last to make it back either. And I'm going, I can run 3 miles. So if I can run 3 miles today, so guess how far I ran the next day?
Probably about, did you run double next day?
1.
Oh, okay.
But then by the end of the week, I did 4. I'm like,
wow,
whoa. Yeah. So if I can do 3, maybe I can do 4. And by that February, I did my first marathon, the Awesome Marathon. And I did it in an average-ish time, which is not bad for your first time. Yeah. Now, the same roommate then convinced me to join Texas 4000 with him, which is an annual charity bike ride done at UT, where they ride bikes from Austin to Anchorage during the summer. And again, it was kind of me going, David, I can't do what you do. And he goes, okay, you can get in shape by then. And I'm going, all right, tell you what, if you sign up, or if you, because you have to apply. If you apply, I'll apply. But you know they're going to take you and reject me. Well, they took us both. And I'm just kind of going, oh, shit. Now I have to get in shape. And that's actually what a lot of that Awesome Marathon was about, is like, well, that's something I can do, because at the time I didn't have a proper bike.
Yeah. And
so I can train for a marathon. If I can do that, I can probably ride a bike pretty far too, right?
Yeah.
So that was the idea.
And it's really surprising how much people can run or cycle and them not know it until they actually do it. Like I don't know if you saw the YouTube video. There's this guy, he was this bigger dude, and his brother or his friend bet him that he couldn't run a marathon without training, a whole marathon without stopping. And this bigger guy who's never ran, sitting on the couch, literally went out, and I think it took him about 10 hours, but he ran around this park loop for 26 miles without stopping, and he ran the whole thing without stopping just to prove his brother wrong.
You,
And
you
so,
can walk a marathon in 10 hours. It's still pretty hard, but you can just walk
ex-
the whole thing.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it goes for anything else we do. And when people first get into running, it's like, oh my gosh, like 13 miles, but you
Mhm.
can do it. It's just it takes a lot of mental
Yeah.
fortitude and discipline, like you were talking about.
Yeah, at some point you have to demystify it. Just the word marathon just sparks this fear
Yeah,
into people. But it's just a number. It's like the word dozen means 12. Marathon is 26.2. There's nothing magic about that number. You can do it. Um, but the other, I'll briefly allude to this. At the time, I was dealing with some like mental issues. Halfway through college, I was changing majors a couple of times, and I was basically dealing with depression. Not severe depression, but for the first time in my life, I didn't feel good about myself. And all of a sudden, I had this thing to latch onto that the more I did it, the better I got. And the better I got, the more I wanted to do it. So I did it more, and then I got better. And it was this upward spiral, which I really needed at the time. And so it kind of became almost a behavioral addiction. But if that's the worst vice I have, it's not bad at all.
yeah,
Um, anyway, so that just kind of, and I did Texas 4000. Dave and I both did it, among many other people. About at the time, 40 or 50 people did it every year, and now it's
yeah,
like 90. It's really grown.
yeah,
But I got back from that, and most people get back from it and they go, I don't want to see a bike seat or a piece of spandex or a Cliff Bar ever again in my life.
yeah.
But I was one of the ones who got back and said, what else can I do? Like, what can I do next?
So what exactly is that? Is the relay? You said it was a relay?
No, it's not a relay. So you ride bikes from
Yeah.
Austin to Anchorage as a team,
How far is that?
4,000 some odd miles.
All right, so y'all bike 4,000
Yeah.
miles to, you
Yeah.
said Anchorage? Where's that at? Is that Alaska?
Alaska. Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah. It takes all summer,
they do
but
that
yeah.
at UT?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
It's an annual thing.
Hey, be over
Now,
here
when we were
for
doing
that.
it, we thought to ourselves, we're the baddest mofo's on the planet,
Yeah.
and all that. Until we got to Arizona and met this 70-year-old German guy who was doing something like that by himself with all this gear strapped to his bike. We had a van.
Wow.
We didn't have stuff strapped to our bike or
Yeah.
anything. So this guy was riding a bike that with all the stuff on it weighed, 70 or 80 pounds. And he was going from like Chicago to San Francisco, but he was going like this roundabout way because there was stuff he wanted to see on the way, like the Grand Canyon and all that. And we're going, oh, okay, we got nothing on this 70-year-old guy from Germany.
Yeah.
And we met a few other people doing that along the way. And none of us had really ever heard of bike touring. And it kind of clicked like, you mean you can just do this whenever the hell you want? You can just strap stuff to your bike and go? I hadn't even thought of that. So a few years later, I did my first solo tour. I went from Austin to Pocatello, Idaho, and back.
Wow.
And why Idaho? Well, my brother lived there at the time, and so I had the summer off. And it's like, and I was thinking I should do a bike trip. And on another hand, I was thinking I should go visit my brother. And then I thought, why don't I just ride my bike there? And so I did.
Why not?
So almost all of that's in the Rockies
Wow.
or in the desert, and it was
Yeah, I'm sure
summer,
that's a
so it
lot of
was
climbing.
yeah, there was
Yeah.
just mountains every day or desert every day. It was
Yeah.
hot. Even in Idaho, it was getting up into the 90s.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
yeah,
Yep.
and so yeah, ever since then, it's just I'm just into this distance hiking, biking, running thing. So yeah,
Wow.
that's kind of my thing now, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's this part of running and biking to where you could go on your own adventure on your own 2 feet
Mhm.
or two wheels, and it's just a memorable adventure. Like you're gonna remember that for the rest of your life, you know. And
Oh yeah.
a lot of people they just look at the competitive side of running or the way it makes them feel or the health benefits, but like you can make life stories out of these things,
Mhm.
and that's something that you've done, and it's pretty amazing so far, like the accomplishments you've done. And what was kind of the point to where you started getting into ultra running and trail running? When did you find that?
Oh, it's funny. It was right around, I think it was in 2010 in 2009, I ran the Boston Marathon, which had been a goal for like 4 or 5 years at that point. And once I did that, and I also did the Austin Distance Challenge that year. Did pretty well at it. Came in second overall and won my age division. So I was really happy with that. Austin Distance Challenge, by the way, is a series of 5 races. Back then it was 6, now it's 5 races, but it's a series of races. The last one is the Austin Marathon. They keep getting longer. And so I had kind of reached all of my running goals. I'd run Boston. I did the Austin Distance Challenge. I broke the 3-hour barrier, which for a marathon.
Congratulations. Yeah.
And
Awesome.
a friend asked me, "So you gonna run another marathon or what?" And I kind of go, "I don't know. It's because it's a lot of training and a lot of work and all that. And I mean, I've done everything I want to do. It's like, okay, just go run another one, I guess." And a year or two later, I moved to the Bay Area in California. I lived there for a year for a job. And I was just riding my bike one day, and I saw all these people running like out of the woods across the street and back into the woods. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? And there was like a volunteer there. And I just rode up to them and said the exact same thing. What the hell are all these people doing? What is this anyway? And he goes, "Oh, coastal trail runs. They're running like a 50K." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he says, "Yeah, there's like a race every other weekend, all over the Bay Area or up and down the coast, really, and all different distances. Check it out, coastal trail runs." And so I'm riding my bike home. Coastal trail runs, coastal trail. I can Google this later. Coastal trail runs. I managed to remember it and looked it up, and it looked really cool. And I go, okay, this is different because I had never done trail running before then. Trail running is not as big here as it is out there. And so I hadn't really heard of it. So I looked it up and go, yeah, they really have a race like every other weekend. Most of them in the Bay Area. So I don't have to like get a hotel or anything. I can just wake up in my bed and go. And they were cheap. It was like $45 or something, the registration for a full marathon. And they got 8 stations with snacks and everything. Like I should do one of these. So I did, and I had so much fun. And I'm like, I should do all of these. So it was for like a calendar year from January to shortly before Thanksgiving was when I moved back home, or back to Texas anyway. And so for January to November, I was running like a marathon or a 50K every other weekend. And I was winning about half of them, was the crazy thing. I mean, they were all like local races, mostly just people in the Bay Area, but I'm kind of going, all right, I'm pretty good at this. In fact, one of the times I came in second, I didn't realize it until after the race, but the guy who beat me was in the Olympics. I'm going, okay, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And he was on vacation and just heard there was a race. And so he was like, screw it, let's do it, and he wasn't even a trail runner. So he just, kind of beat me on a whim. Whereas I was like really training for this race. So it wasn't like, oh, I almost, but it was still super cool. And just talking to him, and I'm like, wait a minute, you were in the Olympics? You were in, what was it, Beijing was the most recent one? Yeah. So that was kind of cool. So I got into trail running basically out there because I just kind of discovered it by accident, thought it was super cool, got hooked on it. And at first I was doing the marathons usually, but then I kind of bumped it up to the 50K. And by the end of the year, I did one 50-miler and I won it. So I'm going, okay, I guess I can run farther. I still, to this day, consider myself more of a marathon guy who happens to do some ultras sometimes and is good at those too. But I like the marathon distance.
Yeah, man. Yeah, out there in the Bay Area, it is beautiful. That especially in like the San Francisco area, they have some beautiful mountains out there. And then whenever you get up to Yosemite, that's even more amazing out there.
Oh
And
yeah.
have you ran? There's this really well-known 50-miler out there. Oh, I can't think of it. It's the North Face 50, I think. Have you ran that race?
Yeah. I have not run that race, but I've run races. Some of the races I was doing was basically on the same trails. So I've run in that area, but I was not in that North Face race. No.
Yeah. Yeah. So you made it to Boston, right?
Mhm.
And from Boston, you had this mindset of like, okay, like that's the biggest level race you could go to.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's like, it's the Rose Bowl,
yeah.
It's the,
And so as a trail runner, whenever you learned about Western States, which I'm sure you've heard of, or you heard
Yeah,
of pretty early on,
yeah.
was that something that always piqued your interest?
Yes and no. It's just the qualifying standards are very high.
Yeah,
Boston's is also high, but not, it's attainably high.
yeah,
Um, I've only run a few races that were golden ticket races, and it was well, Bandera 100K.
yeah,
And they gave golden tickets to, I think, just the top two. And both times I did Bandera 100K, let's see, most recent, just this January, I came in 14th. And I think like 2 or 3 years before that, I did the same race and came in like 13th. So
yeah,
I'm not in that top two range for Bandera. And Rocky Raccoon, which I just recently did, apparently used to be a golden ticket race. But it isn't anymore. Like, well, damn it, because I actually did win that one.
yeah,
So anyway, winning a golden ticket race is very, very difficult. You pretty much have to be a professional, or at least, like a sponsored athlete or semi-professional or something. Someone has to be paying you to run. You have to be kind of at that level. And I'm a math teacher. I don't have all day
yeah,
to go train.
yeah. So with
But that and UTMB, I would like to do. It's just
yeah,
I don't think I ever will, because I'm just not quite there.
yeah.
And I'm not getting any younger either. So
Yeah, it's actually interesting to see because there are some ultra runners that, as they get older within the ultra and trail running world, that do come from a road marathon background,
mhm.
to where they do actually like begin to peak in the ultra running world at a later age, and
Mhm.
so it's quite interesting to see that. And I actually I read a little bit of your race report for the Rocky Raccoon 100,
Mhm.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't know that you won the race when you crossed the line. Is that right?
I wasn't positive. I was pretty sure, because so it's that race is 5 laps, 20 miles
Yeah.
each lap, and I was in like the front group when we finished the first lap. There were about 5 people that finished it together. And at the start finish line, it's just tent city. All these people with their crews and their pop up tents or
Yeah,
canopy
it's a
tents
cool
and all that.
atmosphere, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Now I was felt like I was the only guy there who was just there alone. And no friends or family came out to watch, nothing. And in fact, the volunteer seemed surprised that I just had a drop bag. And I go, "Where do we leave drop bags?" And he's like, "Well, where's your tent?" I'm like, "What tent? I just got a drop bag." And they're like, "Oh, like no one had asked this question."
Yeah.
Anyway, so we get to the start finish, and everyone scatters and finds their tent, except me. My drop bag is leaning against a tree right there. So I grab my stuff, and I like eat something real quick, and
Yeah.
let's go. So it was like a 15-second aid station. Um, and one other guy, one of the other guys, basically we left together. And it was only about a half mile later that I passed him and started going on my own. And the thing is, all these loops, well, when you're in first, you don't see anyone else. Like
Yeah.
you don't pass them. Nor can you ask anyone, "Hey, how far back?" They can ask a volunteer, "How far ahead?"
Yeah.
Or "When's the last time you saw the person who's ahead of me?" But I can't ask them when's the last time they saw the person behind me. So I didn't know how far back anyone was the whole time. And there were a couple times I had to stop and like use a porta potty or something. So I'm
Yeah.
going, well, someone could have passed me while I was in one of those, or could have passed me while I was at an aid station or something. And I wasn't paying attention. And that whole first loop was like in the dark, and I only saw people from behind. So I didn't know what they looked like. And it was really cold. So by the time the later loops had started, everyone had like shed a layer of clothing. So I couldn't just go, "Oh, blue jacket, that's the guy." I don't know what he's wearing anymore. So I didn't recognize any of these people. I don't know if I saw them at all or not, because there's a few out and back sections where I might have seen them, but I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. So I had no idea. I was pretty sure I was in first, but I didn't want to celebrate until I crossed the finish line and I go, did I win? Am I the first finisher? I just finished my 5th lap. And the volunteers had to kind of ask each other, wait, did anyone else finish their 5th loop? This is your 5th loop? And, that. And so they kind of had to confirm. I mean, it only took 10 seconds or
They had to
so,
look
but
at your watch.
there was a little bit of suspense there. I was like, did I win? I wanted to, So it was pretty cool actually. In fact, one of the photographers even thought it was funny. He's like, just the fact that you were kind of surprised.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
Who
yeah, I wasn't positive.
who was the guy
I don't
that?
know.
What do you remember the name of the guy that helps you after the race? I remember reading in your race report. Do you remember his name?
The volunteer, I think, well, the volunteer I spoke with most, I think his name was Chris,
Chris.
I
Chris.
think.
I want to say Chris was the race director of that race.
Oh, okay.
It might have been if it's
Cool.
Chris McWaters. I
Then
think
it
he was the
might be.
actual race director of that race. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that would kind of make
I thought
sense,
that
I
was funny
guess.
when I was reading it because you were like, "Oh yeah, this really cool guy, Chris. He came over, the volunteer, who's super
Yeah.
nice, and
Yeah,
yeah, he's actually a race director. I'm pretty sure of that race.
he
So,
well, why wouldn't he be a nice guy? I mean,
yeah,
but yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure his name was Chris. And as far as I was concerned, he was just one of the volunteers at the finish line area
that's
and
awesome.
was really helpful, really friendly, and
Yeah,
let me into the tent to sit next to the space heater because it was below freezing and I was having trouble keeping
wow.
warm because I was so exhausted.
I heard it was so cold out there.
Yeah, when the race started, it was 21 degrees,
Wow.
and the sun. It was an hour before sunrise, so
Yeah,
it's an hour before the sun comes up. Now, once the sun comes up, it isn't warmth. It's about an hour after the
yeah.
sun comes up that the air warms up at all. So the first 2 hours were in the low 20s, and that is the coolest temperature in which I have ever run. So I wasn't exactly sure how to dress,
Yeah.
but it was not enough, and I should have known. I'm anemic, by the way,
Oh,
so I
really?
have poor circulation, especially
Oh,
to my
wow.
hands and feet. So my hands get cold like nobody's business.
Wow.
Um, and so, I mean, my hands by the end of that first lap, only this knuckle, only the knuckle that connects to the palm, would bend. The other ones
Oh,
didn't bend.
wow. Yeah.
So my hands were just kind of spatulas at that
Oh,
point. It was really hard to eat anything
yeah,
because
I'm
I had
sure.
to like try to grab a spoon or whatever
Yeah.
with like you know almost like with mittens on.
Yeah. Wow. How does that affect your running? Um,
Well, my hands hurt.
yeah.
That was my main thing. It's just my hands hurt so bad it was distracting me from everything else. The other thing was I just kind of felt stiff in my midsection, like
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
hips and my lower back and stuff like that. That all felt stiff, and so I couldn't open up my stride
Yeah.
very much. Now I have a you can't necessarily tell on camera. I am short. I am five
Oh,
foot
really?
five,
Oh,
and
wow.
so my stride is naturally short. And now it was shorter, and if because I just have a high cadence because of my height. I have to if I want to run fast. And so people say it looks like I'm always sprinting because I pop, 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 pop. And so it was like that, but more now. And I was going, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is getting my heart rate up and it'll warm me up from the inside. But yeah, it was just kind of like really short, choppy steps by the end of that first loop.
Yeah, man.
Um,
No, that's a very just like you getting that win is very humbling because you went in like you didn't know for sure if someone was ahead of you, if you weren't, and it's just like and then your perception and just like hear your story behind it all. It's very humbling and it's just awesome to hear to someone like you to win. And so that's pretty amazing, man. And whenever y'all were running, um were you going what pace were you going at?
well, at what point in the race?
What was your did
um,
you have like a goal pace whenever you were actually running the race or
kind of. And my goal adjusted during the race because I wasn't sure exactly how fast the course was. I hadn't
yeah,
gone out and practiced there or anything. I mean, it's 3.5 hours by car from where I live. I don't drive much, by the way. I prefer to ride, I bike everywhere.
yeah,
Um, anyway, so yeah, the first loop we finished because yeah, it was like me and like five other guys
yeah.
finished in something like 2:45,
Wow.
and so that came
Yeah,
to something like an 8:45 mile pace.
bro.
My next two laps, the next 40 miles or so were coming in at about 8:40 mile pace, so just a little bit faster. I could run better now that it wasn't so cold.
Yeah.
And the fourth lap was when I was running, I think, just under a 9, or right around a 9. Um, it would have been a little better, but because the fourth lap is where I started having stomach issues. I had lots of bathroom breaks during
Yeah.
that fourth lap and fell twice during the fourth lap. Uh, and then the fifth lap was coming in at, I think, just around 10, or maybe just under 10. But overall, the final average pace was 8:54 on
Wow.
average for the whole race, including stopped time.
Wow. That's very
So
impressive.
after a while, after the first couple laps, I kind of looked at my watch and realized I could finish under 15, maybe. So that became the goal for the rest of the race, and
Yeah.
I did. So that was I was pretty
Wow.
happy about that.
That's impressive. Yeah,
My goal going in was more like between 15 and 16 was kind of my realist. For every race, I set like 4 goals,
yeah.
and it's like there's the optimistic, there's the realistic, there's the not bad, and then there's that if I don't do this, I'm going to be mad at myself.
Yeah.
And so my most optimistic one was 15 hours, and my realistic was between 15 and 16. So I was just really happy to hit all 4 goals, basically.
Yeah. Wow, that's almost like unhuman, like to run a sub 15-hour 100-mile race. Like that's phenomenal. That's amazing. Not
That's what someone told me. So I mean, the course was pretty easy, I'll say that. But yeah, apparently that's
yeah.
not common. Like there's a
Yeah,
few dozen people in the country who can run a sub 1500. Like, oh, well, that's neat.
yeah. They definitely need you to they should
But
do a thing to where I understand Western States has golden tickets and you have to place, but they should make it to where if you run a sub
yeah,
15
at a certain
hour,
time, like
yeah,
Boston.
yeah,
That,
absolutely.
but I think the problem with that is with ultra running and trail running in particular, the course determines your time so much.
That's true.
A couple of years ago, I did another. My first, that's Rocky was only my second 100-miler. My
Wow.
first one was the Cactus Rose 100. It's
Yep.
basically the same course as the Bandera 100K. In fact, the parts they cut out of those loops are the flattest parts. So the Cactus Rose is mile for mile, even hillier. And I ran that in 17:48. So almost exactly 3 hours slower. But I would say that might have been even, if anything else, slightly better.
Yeah.
Because that course is just hills out the wazoo and rocks everywhere. And yeah, so the problem with saying, okay, this time means this qualification is, well, that time where? And under what conditions? Was it raining? Was it hot? And so people who sign up for the easiest races would be the ones most likely to get into Western States, and the people who got lucky with the best conditions. So I understand why they try to go with placing. But yeah, and I mean, I would imagine they don't want to open up too much because they don't want the race to get too big. So what else can they do?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe you're not sponsored yet. Are you sponsored? I don't think you are.
I have never successfully gotten any kind of sponsorship.
From nobody. From nobody.
No, I have not even gotten, like a discount.
Wow.
Closest thing would be for this race, actually.
Yeah.
And Cactus Rose also, for this race in particular, it was Rocky Raccoon. It was you get to pick something off of Nathan's website, whatever you want. Just pick one item, you get that. So that's the closest thing.
Wow.
But yeah, I've always wanted that. That'd be nice. In particular, I would really like my summer thing sponsored because again, I haven't mentioned that since we started recording.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I did, because in the summers, yeah, we mentioned cycling. In the summers, because I'm a high school teacher, I spend 2 months just going hiking or biking all summer. Like last summer, I rode a bike from Kansas City to Maine. This summer, the plan is to hike the northern half of the PCT, or Pacific Crest Trail. I've already done the southern half. I couldn't finish the whole thing in 2 months. That's very nearly a record. So finishing the whole thing in 4 is actually shaking a leg. Most people take 5 or 6. Wow. But anyway, that's what I would like to have sponsored, is because you can reach so many more people that way. And the thing is, I use running gear when I'm hiking and even when I'm biking. Now, I
Yeah.
don't wear running shoes when I'm biking. I wear bike shoes, but other than that, I'm wearing like running shirts and stuff like that when I'm biking because it works both on and off the bike. You can walk into a store and no one looks at you weird. And
Yeah.
it's simpler and it's comfortable. So I really like wearing running gear for hiking and biking. Um, and so if I go on these summer long adventures, I mean, I meet hundreds of people a day. Sometimes I'm even speaking, like I get to a small town and I start asking around for a place to stay. And everyone goes, "You're doing what?" And pretty soon I'm at this like community barbecue that's going on and like speaking on a microphone, like, "Here's what I'm doing, and I'm raising money for charity," or something like that. And people think it's so cool. And anyway, I could reach a lot of people that way and also sort of bridge this gap. Like, hey, did you know that these running clothes are really good for hiking too?
Yeah.
So if someone wants to get behind that, you've got a full-time spokesman 2 months of the year, and you also have a guy
Yeah.
who gets 100 new impressionable teenagers at his disposal every year,
Yeah.
and they frequently ask me, "What shoes do you wear?" Because they see me as the world's leading expert when it comes to running and outdoors, and they think it must be the
Yeah.
shoes. So
Yeah. What shoes
uh,
do you wear? What's your go-to?
I wear a variety.
Okay.
In fact, at Rocky Raccoon, I was wearing road shoes.
Oh well. Yeah.
That course is just so flat and not at all rocky, despite the name, that you don't need trail
Yeah.
shoes for that run. Now, I understand why some people might want trail shoes because for one thing, they might just be comfortable in them. And trail shoes are, just a little more beefy on average, and some
Yeah.
people want that. But there's almost no rocks. The thing it's most known for is roots. But you don't need tread to like dig into roots. That's
Yeah.
not how roots work. You avoid the roots. You step between the roots.
Yeah.
And so I thought I just wanted the lightest shoe possible, so it's easier to like pick up my feet and place them where I want them. And so I ran in a pair of road shoes that I've used for a marathon before, and they worked great. So that's what I wore. But I wore a different pair at Bandera 100K a month before that, because that race is famously rocky. So I did
Yeah.
want, trail shoes for that. And my next
Have you
race coming up in 2 weeks, I'll use the same trail shoes I used for that, because again, a little rockier, a little more hills. So
what race are you gonna be running in 2 weeks?
2 weeks from now, I'm doing a 100K called the Dos Senderos.
Oh
And
wow.
it's right around here. It's less than an hour from where I live. So I like that. And this is the first year of that race. It's the inaugural race. It's the
Wow.
first year of the race. So I don't have any good data on it. I
Yeah.
can't read other people's race reports or anything like that. But it's in a state park where I've gone hiking before, so I kind of sort of remember what the trails were like. And
Yeah.
it's not the hardest thing, but it's a trail shoes kind of course.
Yeah.
So
So let
so
me get this right. You ran 100K the beginning of January. A few
mhm.
weeks later, you run Rocky, the 100 miler, and
Yeah,
win it.
4 weeks
And,
later,
and then a
4 weeks
few weeks
after
later,
that.
now you're going to be running 100K.
Uh-huh. So
That,
I'm in this series called the Texas Trail Championship. Have you heard of
oh,
that?
okay, yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So that one, there's something like 20 races to choose from,
yeah.
or 20 or so, that are part of the series, and you can run any of them you want. You can run all 20 if you feel like it, I guess. I wouldn't, but it's a point system. So the longer the race is, the more points you get, and the higher you place, the more points you get.
Well, yeah.
Right. So the thing is, no matter how many races you run, only your top 4 point scoring races count.
Mm,
So you can run 5 or 6, and that might be advantageous. So your lowest 1 or 2 races don't go into your total. But I'm just doing 4 uh, to try to spread them out at least a little bit and have some
yeah.
recovery time. And if I do terrible at one of them, then sure, I'll pick another one and do that. But yeah, 4. So I've got 2 down, 2 to go. The next one is 2 weeks from now. And the final one would be about a month after that. And that one's a last runner standing format, which I've never done, and it
Oh,
sounds very
yeah,
exciting.
yeah. Have you
So
seen the Big Dog's Backyard Ultra?
I haven't seen it. I've read about it, and
Yeah.
that's what this race is based on, same
Cool.
format. So even the loops are even about the same length, I think 4.2 miles.
What's the name of that last man standing race that you're talking about?
The one I'm doing is called The Game,
Oh,
and
yep.
it's
I've heard of the game before. Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
think it's only been around a couple years.
yeah.
So Yeah, I've never done anything like it. I've never even done timed races. You know, the ones where it's like, how far can you go in 12 hours? That kind of thing. I've
Yeah.
never done that
Did
either.
you
I've really
see?
just done distances.
Did you see they're doing a 100-hour race, trail racing over Texas? Dude, they're doing a 100-hour
Goodness
race to where
gracious.
you run 0.75 miles out around a cone and then run 0.75 miles back for
Oh
like
my gosh.
100 hours.
Point
And
seven five. That's basically,
it's a mile and a half loop back
yeah.
and forth.
I'm just going, like, how far is that on a track? I mean, that's only like 2 laps on a track. No, like three. Yeah, it's three. It's like three. Oh, God. Because I
That'd
mean,
be
I'd run on a track once a week and I hate
six laps around
it.
the track. It'd be six
Yeah, well, if you,
laps
that
total.
out is three and the back is
Yep.
three, but yeah, um, I guess that's a little better than a track, but not by much.
Yeah, these races are getting crazy, and
Yeah,
I know the game. The game used to be a big dog's backyard qualifier, but I don't
it
think
is. It's still,
is it now?
but it's like tiered. If you win that, you qualify for some other one, and if you win that, you can go to big dogs.
Oh wow, yeah.
So yeah, this is like the bronze level.
Oh okay, wow. Yeah, those races are pretty awesome to watch. Just to like sit there and watch people push themselves because it's just them against themselves in a way,
Mhm.
against these other people going against themselves as well. So
Right. It's the type of race that answers the question, how far could I really run
yep.
if I had
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, and it's amazing to see the distances people go. People go like 300-400 miles at
Mhm.
these types of races.
Yeah, I've heard the big dogs. I think this last year went something like 85 laps or 80 something laps. I'm not sure exactly, but um, and everyone else I've mentioned that to, they try to do the math in their head when they hear that. What's 85 times 4.2? And they try to figure out how many miles that is. And I go, forget how many miles that is. That's 85 hours.
Yeah,
Do you know how long that is just to be awake? That's
yeah,
three
it's
and a half days. And since you have to do a loop every hour, it's not like you can just sleep for 2 or 3 hours and then get back at it like you can for some people do for like a 200 mile or 300 mile race. You know, you take like a 2 or 3 hour nap at some point, but you can't do that when you got to complete one lap every hour. So they're getting maybe 5 or 10 minutes of sleep maximum. Uh,
yeah,
and
and
that alone would just wallop me. I mean, I need my sleep. So
yeah, I mean, sleep is the only way your body really recovers from. It's like you could sit around all day and kind of recover, but your body doesn't truly, and you know this, your body doesn't truly recover until you sleep. It recovers during that deep sleep,
yeah,
that deep recovery.
and just your mental state, but your mental exhaustion.
Wow,
I mean,
the hallucinations must be.
you're yeah, that I've never hallucinated, but I mean, even failing that, just I imagine your vision would start getting really bad.
Wow, yeah,
Uh, because by the end of Rocky Raccoon, my left eye was getting pretty blurry.
yeah,
Um, and that was what convinced me not to drive home that night. And if it hadn't been for that blurry eye, I might have tried to just drive home in the dark after that race. But I'm like, nope, we're not doing this. Not
yeah.
with a blurry eye. We're getting a hotel room.
Yeah, the psychological effects of just running for that long and staying awake is it's pretty amazing. Like what people experience and the stories you hear. Like Courtney DeWalter, you hear about her hallucinations, and guys, we had guys on the show run like 240-mile races, like Moab 240, and he was telling me about all these how he saw like an Amazon warehouse out in the middle of the desert or something. And so the mind's very interesting whenever you do push your body to those points. And I actually just pulled up the Big Dogs Backyard Ultra, the one from 2021, and the guy that won it was Harvey Lewis, and he ran 85 laps.
80. Okay.
Is it 85? Yeah,
That's
he
what I
set the record
thought.
with
Yeah.
85 laps, and each lap is 4.166 miles.
Okay.
And I want to say, I don't know if this article says exactly how far in miles that is. You're the
Well,
math teacher. You should be able to do, let's see,
not in my head.
5 times 4.166. Okay, that's 354 miles. And so he ran
In about
354
3.5 days.
in 3.5 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
So basically 100 miles a day for 3.5 days.
Wow.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, just even like as a cyclist, just biking that would be
Yeah,
pretty difficult.
I've never biked that far at one time.
Yeah.
Farthest I've biked in just in one go was almost exactly, it was just over 300K, which comes to just under 200 miles. And I mean, I did that in daylight, so that's pretty good. But there was just a bitchin' tailwind that day.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was on a loaded bike, that was in Argentina, in
Wow.
Patagonia. The wind there is just legendary.
Wow.
I think it was the next day was the day where I was blown off my bike repeatedly because it kept
Wow.
coming. It was coming from the side that day, and that's arguably worse than coming from in front of you, because if it's in front of you, you can just kind of tuck in and pretend you're going up a hill. But if it's from the side, you can't even stay on the bike.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. And
uh,
that was in Argentina.
mhm.
And was it at the Patagonia Mountains?
Well, Patagonia is like a whole region. It's not the name of a mountain range, but yeah, it
Oh,
was on
okay.
this.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
That's
on the
my
plains
geography.
basically.
Okay.
The deal is Argentina has like the Andes on one side, just a line of mountains,
Okay.
and on the other side has a coast. And the difference in air pressure is what causes the wind to just
Wow.
rush from the mountains to the coast. And there's not much in between. It's just flat, open plains that lets the wind just run unabated. That's where you get these incredibly powerful, sustained winds out there.
How fast was the wind going to where it like pushed you off your bike?
That day, I wish I knew for sure, but I'll put it this way. I was on an unpaved road. It was not a very good unpaved road, and I was on a touring bike. So my bike had a 38 millimeter tire, so about like that, about an inch and a half wide.
Yeah.
So not a mountain bike. So I was blowing off my bike repeatedly, and eventually just gave up trying to get back on, because as soon as I picked up one foot to try to get on the bike, go down again. So I had to
Wow.
just walk for a
Wow.
while. But the thing is, I knew I was making a left turn in only a couple miles. So I'm like, just walk a couple miles, get to that left turn, and the wind's going to be behind you. Like, all right, now we're
Yeah.
talking. I had to be very careful to get on the bike now that the wind was, now that the wind was at my back, it was doable. But I still had to be very careful.
Yeah.
Got on the bike. And so, well, I just managed to straddle it. I'm like, okay, now we're straddling it. Now we got to get up and onto the seat. And when I kind of got up, the wind just kind of blew the bike forward. And they're like,
Wow.
oh, we're on the seat now. Okay. And I didn't even pedal for the next 2 hours,
Wow.
not even uphill. And in fact, I was riding the brakes most of the time, and I was going about 30 miles an hour without pedaling on a dirt road, not on a mountain bike.
Wow.
And so that tells me the wind was
Yeah.
probably 80 or 90, something like that,
Wow.
if I had to guess. And so I finally got into town, and I was going most of the time on that trip anyway. It was when you get into town, you try to figure out, is there a place to set up a tent, like in a city park or something, or should I find a place to stay inside? And I'm going, we're not trying to set up the tent.
Yeah.
If I try to pull out the tent, I will never see it again. It'll just blow across
Yeah.
the Atlantic, and
Yep.
that'll be it. So I got a hotel that night. But everyone in town was not at all surprised. Everyone was acting like this was a normal day. I'm like, how can this be a normal day? It was nuts. But that was towards the end of my longest ever bike tour, which was from the Arctic Ocean, the north coast of Alaska, to the tip of South America.
Wow. Did you do that
Uh,
solo?
yeah,
Wow. So you biked all the way from North America down to South America.
yeah, all the way down both continents. Right.
Wow. When did you do that?
That was in 2014, and it was basically a gap year. It was right before I started teaching again.
Wow.
So it took 7 months, and you have to time it so that you start in summer here and you end in summer here, because the latitudes at both ends are very high.
Yeah.
Um, and those are different times a year because it's different hemispheres. So most people that try to do that, they plan to do a year and a half, but I went for half a year. So I
Wow.
finished in 7 months. The original plan was I would take a little longer, but I got ahead of schedule and started getting homesick, and kind of ran the numbers and figured out if I shake a leg, I can make it home for Christmas, and I did. So
Yeah. Wow. So you bike through, you went through Alaska, Canada, U.S., Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua. Then you went through South America, and probably you went through a lot of the Amazons all the way through Argentina.
no, I never went to the Amazon.
Oh, you
I
didn't?
was I was pretty much in the Andes
Oh,
the
okay.
whole time, like an
Yeah.
idiot. I
Yeah, go
crossed
through the
the
mountains.
Andes 7 times in the
Wow.
process of getting all the way down, because the Andes run down the whole continent. So anytime, if you're on the Pacific coast, if you want to get from here inland or from inland back to the coast, you are crossing the Andes because they're right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wound up going up and over them again and again.
Wow.
And it was because at one point I wanted to go somewhere on the coast, and then now I want to go to Machu Picchu, so I did, and now I want to go over there, and so on. And
Yeah.
because I kind of knew like when's the next time I'm going to be in Peru, right? So let's
Yeah.
go. If you just pedal up a mountain, you can go see Machu Picchu. It's like, all right, let's go. This is my chance.
Yeah.
So,
That's
got to see
really
a lot
amazing.
of cool things.
Yeah.
South America is a land of extremes. And the Andes just do not mess around. There were some days that all you did was climb. I think the most I gained in a single day was 14,000 feet. And it was basically started at the coast and just went into the Andes all day. That was it. And at the end of the day, boom, you're at 14,000 feet. Okay, that was a good day.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. Did you
so
did you have like a plan on like how far you were gonna bike on every day and like where exactly you were gonna camp, or did you just kind of wing it
where
and
exactly I was going to camp? No, you really can't plan that.
yeah.
Most of the time I had roughly the next week planned out. Like I know about how far I can go in a day. And so I just try to, okay, we're going to try and get that far, that far, that far, and try to find towns that are spaced about that far apart. So that was pretty much the plan. And so I would do that maybe about 5 days to a week ahead. I would know where I'm going. There were, of course, a few like key points that I had planned all along, like Machu Picchu and the final destination, Ushuaia, and a few other big spots along the way. But like South Padre Island was one of them. I had actually never been to South Padre before
Really?
that
Yeah.
trip, and I'm like, let's go. It's on the way.
Did you bike across the bridge to South Padre?
Yeah, you're not supposed to, but it's like, okay,
Yeah. Did
gonna
you
do
get
it.
pulled over?
No,
Okay, can I tell you a story
hey,
real quick?
yeah, of course.
So when I visited South Padre for the first time, and I wanted to run to it from Port Isabel, so I ran
Mhm.
across the bridge, and halfway across the bridge, I got pulled over and almost turned into the back of a cop car. But luckily, my friend pulled up and saw me. It was a miracle.
Okay,
So for anyone listening, don't run across the South Padre
yeah,
unless you're doing the
evidently.
South Padre half marathon. So
And I mean, that really sucks because that means that whole island, you are not allowed to go there unless you own a car.
yep,
So
yeah,
you have to buy a $20,000 piece of machinery as
yep.
a cover charge to get to this island. Like, what if I don't have a car? What if I just don't like driving a car? Like, well, that's too bad. You have to have a car.
And the thing
That sucks.
is on the bridge, before you get on the bridge, there's no signs saying you can't bike, you can't run. There's no signs at all. And it doesn't tell you or warn you that you can't run or bike or walk across. And I mean there's a which you wrote it. There's a like a edge of the road to where you can run or bike, and
Mhm.
it's kind of safe, and this it's kind of safe.
Yeah, I
And
love that description. It's
and
kind of
they
safe.
should really just add like a thing to the side of the bridge so people can just kind of like San Francisco with
Or
the
build a pedestrian bridge.
yeah, yeah, do something like that and really connect those two, because I mean it's a very popular place and several people go there. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, and whenever you went through South America, did you ever run into, because there's a lot of crazy things going on there today, did you ever run into any dangerous situations while you were on your bike?
Yeah, I got robbed.
Wow, you did? Where did you get robbed
Now,
at?
I only got robbed once.
Wow.
And, you know, almost everyone I met, great, friendly people like you would
Yeah.
find anywhere else. I mean, and I mean, I could have gotten robbed anywhere. I don't necessarily think it was unique to Latin America or anything like that. But it was in Colombia, and it's just okay. Way to break the stereotype, guys. You know, the funny thing is, when I first got to Colombia, my first 4 or 5 days in Colombia, I was just going, wow, Colombia is like really cool and really nice, and I like it here. And if you talk to some of the older folks, they'll go, yeah, we've come a long way, because they remember that it was pretty bad back in like the 80s and stuff like that. And when the like drug cartels were just running, sometimes literally running the government.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have come a long way, and it shows. But yeah, it was there was one particular road that people kept warning me about. But I've noticed in Latin America, everyone warns you about the next place. Like in Mexico, they warn you about Guatemala. And in Guatemala, they warn you about Honduras. And in Honduras, they warn you about El Salvador. Everyone seems to think like, I guess, doesn't trust their neighbors or something like that. Yeah. So I had been warned about this one road. And I'm going, yeah, the people in Northern Colombia think Southern Colombia is bad. But this one road in particular, it was starting to kind of stick out that more than a few people pointed to not just a region, but this one road. But that was the only road through that entire area, this very mountainous area. There's just one mountain road. I'm like, all right, well, you know, little common sense goes a long way, and it does. But I got robbed at 11 in the morning. Wow. And just on the side of the road. I was stopped just taking a picture with my phone, just taking a picture of the mountains. And these two guys come down on a motorcycle coming the other way. And the guy on the back, he got off the motorcycle and sat on the guardrail. And at first I figured he was just tired of sitting on the motorcycle and wanted to sit on anything else. Pretty normal, right? Well, I realized after the fact, now they had one on either side of me. And the guy on the motorcycle stayed a little bit in the road because, well, there was no shoulder, and he kept looking around and like, oh, he's just making sure there's not a car coming so he can get out of the way. Well, it was more to make sure no one was watching. But anyway, they asked a few normal questions like, oh, where are you from? Where are you going? How long have you been on the road? Questions I was kind of used to answering. I still had my phone in my hand. And the guy on the guardrail, I was like, all right, guys, I'm going to go. And he stood up immediately after saying that and starts walking right at me. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. And by the time I had time to react, he whips out this pistol, wow. Sticks it in my face and grabs my phone, jumps on the motorcycle, and they're gone. That took maybe 3 seconds. Wow. So it felt like they had done that before. It was quick and it was coordinated. And all they got was my phone, which is not that big a deal. It's just a phone. And it was actually under theft for warranty. So I got a new one in less than a week. Wow. So not that big a deal at the end of the day. But yeah, that's the most dangerous thing that happened. Other than that, had really no bad run-ins. The next worst thing that happened was just getting ripped off at the customs office in Bolivia. So
yeah. Yeah. And what year was this again?
2014.
2014. Okay, so that was wow, we're in 2022 now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So that was 8 years ago. Wow. Well, that's honestly like for you to go through all of South America. And I mean, that is pretty crazy. Like that whole story, I was hanging on to every single word you were saying. And I mean, that's not really normal. Like, it doesn't happen to most people. And so, first of all, just for you to bike that far and then for that to happen, and I'm sure there's a lot of other crazy stories. And then you were talking about the wind.
There's a story like that for almost every day of that trip. And it lasted 7 months. Like the first day, there was the fact that like this cop and this trucker both pulled over to like ask me if I was warm enough because I was in Alaska. And the first 3 days, the sun never went down.
Wow, yeah.
And it never got above freezing either because it was just way up there. But it never got any colder either because the sun never goes down. So it was just hovering right around 30 degrees, 24 hours a day. And you're way up there in a part of Alaska that even Alaskans don't go to. Now, Alaska is big. Did you know that? Yeah. So the first 6 days was 500 miles that were almost entirely uninhabited. There's one town that entire way, and it has less than 20 people in it. So the first 6 days are just pretty much uninhabited. The road is entirely unpaved. The sun didn't go down, and it hardly ever got above freezing. And so it was just kind of like a gut check, like, are you ready for this trip or not? You know, if you can get those first 6 days and make it to Fairbanks, then maybe you can make it the rest of the way.
Yeah.
My first night on the road, I wound up sleeping in an outhouse. That's a whole nother story. And these Germans found me in the morning, like they were in an RV, and they knocked on the door of the outhouse. Woke me up, in fact, that way. It was 8 a.m. And they go, is that your bike outside? And I go, yeah. Did you sleep in the outhouse? I go, yeah. They go, do you want to come inside our RV and warm up? We're about to have breakfast. We have like hot tea. I'm like, yes, that is the thing I want. And
Wow.
so they just fed me like muffins and tea, and we hung out there for like an hour. I got my clothes warmed back up because they were all wet, and they were on their way north to get to the Arctic coast. I was coming down,
Yeah.
and so a couple days later, they caught up to me as I was still going down, and we had dinner together and camped out at the Yukon River, and
Wow.
that kind of thing would happen just all the time. And I met someone else the same day and wound up staying at his place in Fairbanks, and on and on and on. But
Wow.
yeah,
Have
all
you
kinds of crazy things.
have you ever considered writing a book on this? Seriously. Like,
Well, yes, kind of. My all my journals are on packjournal.com, so you can check all those out, all
yeah,
the
I'll have it
photos
in the
too.
link. Yeah.
Yeah, and but I have written a book. I wrote a book about one of the shortest bike tours I did, and the book is called Bikes, Blues, and Barbecues. And it was a 6-day tour I did with my dad, right around here in Central Texas, where I live. Uh, my dad, like me, likes riding a bike, not quite as much as I do, or not quite as far as I do. And we also like old blues music and barbecue. And I noticed that a lot of the better barbecue joints in the state are right in this area and are about a day's bike ride apart. And I thought, oh, you know who would love this idea? So I called my dad while I was in grad school, and I go, hey, got an idea. When I finish grad school, you should come. And oh, no, he wasn't retired yet, but he was close to it. Anyway, you should take a week off, and we should go do this thing. I've got an idea for this trip. It would take 6 days a week. It was a 6-day trip. We hit 9 barbecue joints in 6 days. All 9 of them were ranked in the top 25 in the state, and I think we hit 4 of the top 5. So
Wow.
this was an all-star cast of barbecue joints.
Yeah.
We probably gained weight during the tour. In fact, we probably gained a lot of weight during this
Yeah.
tour because we were eating the crap out of barbecue. But I kept journals on that. But for the first time, it felt more like a story, especially because there was dialogue. There was actually someone else there to talk to. And there was more to talk about than just riding bikes. There was the barbecue. I talked about the history of blues music and some of the history of the barbecue joints and how a lot of them started as butchers, and why they evolved into restaurants is because people would, because before refrigeration, they would rub down the meat with salt and smoke it to preserve it. But people liked it so much they would go, "Can you do that and just cut me a piece and I'm going to eat it right now?"
Yeah.
And they shifted their business to that. But that's why so many of them are called something or other, meat market or city market or something like that. It's because they were just a butcher
Wow.
for a long time. So I talked about those kinds of things, and I sent a pitch to something like 20 publishers, and most of them didn't even have the decency to write back and say no. So I self-published it on Amazon as an ebook, because anyone can just upload whatever they want
Yeah.
as an ebook on Amazon. I think I've sold like 10 copies, and I think most of them were to my family. So the whole writing a book thing, I've tried, and I mean, I'd still be interested, but it's like applying to a job. You just apply 20 times, and you're lucky if someone says no, because at least they took the time to write back, and it's just obnoxious.
Yeah.
And eventually you get tired of it. And the same thing is true for asking for sponsors. I've just kind of given up. But this most recent result at Rocky Raccoon has made me confident enough to maybe try again. I don't know. I might reach out to some companies and see if they're interested. Who knows?
Yeah. Wow. Well, we've gone a long way talking about running in college, about a mile a day, all the way to
Yeah.
biking across all of
Yeah.
the
And now
land.
my next race, I'm like, oh, it's only 100K, whatever. It's not as long as my last race.
Yeah.
And even when I think back just to this past July, when I was first kind of getting back into the running cycle again, because I had spent all summer biking, I had to get myself all pumped up just to go run like 8 miles. And like, that's
Yeah.
pretty far, and next weekend I'm going to run 9 miles, and,
Yeah.
and today I ran 14, and it's like, that was just a standard training run. So it's
Yeah.
even in the span of just the past 6 months or so, I've come a long way. And if a short anemic math teacher can do it, anyone can do it. So
Yep.
it's just a matter of putting in the miles and putting in the time and patience and slow improvements. It's not about pushing yourself as hard as you can. It's about consistently pushing yourself in the right direction.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, man, your story is just very inspiring, and honestly, like I could see like your life having a movie based on it or something. Like it'd be so interesting to sit there and watch a movie of all these stories you're telling us and just see it from like a movie perspective or a documentary. And so, um, yeah, man, that's really awesome. And
Stay tuned. I've got so many things on the bucket list. One thing I would really like to do, I don't think anyone's ever done this yet. I want to be the first person to bike all 17 Eurovelo routes. So if anyone out there wants to back that and like, hey, that sounds like a cool project, we'll
yeah,
I will. If someone says we will pay you to do it, I would actually. That's one of the few things I would quit my job to do.
really,
To just go ride all 17 Eurovelo routes. That
wow,
sounds so friggin' awesome. So
yeah,
if you're curious what that is, there's a bunch of Eurovelo, there's 17 routes, and most of them are coast to coast, whether that's east to west or north to south, but across Europe one way or another. And they just sound like such a cool way to see all these different countries. Most of the routes will go through like 6 countries, and I would love to do that. So that's on the list, all 17 of them.
yeah. Yeah, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. Like it is awesome just to sit here and listen to all your stories and watch what you've done and what you're going to do. Because this is only just the beginning, and I'm very interested to see what you do in the next 20
Yeah,
years. You know, and
it's a
so
big world out there.
yeah,
There's so much to see and do.
yep. Yep. Yeah, man. And it's pretty amazing. And I hate to wrap it up, but before we do, we're going to ask the questions that we usually ask every guest before they leave the show.
Yeah.
And so the first question is, let me pull this up right here. First question is, let me find it. I'm having trouble finding it.
Okay.
Okay, here it is. All right. First question. If you could only pick one song for runs for the rest of your life, what song would you choose? So just one song
One song for running.
for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
or
Well,
cycling.
the funny thing is, yeah, I have a playlist for both, as you might imagine. But the funny thing is, I hardly ever listen to music when I run or bike, but it's more, sometimes I'll listen to music before I run or bike, especially before a race to just get all pumped up.
Yeah.
And I'll be kind of singing it to myself while I'm running,
Yeah.
but I usually don't listen to music while I run or bike. But yeah, if I have to pick one, man, hard to say. I might go with what's the one I've been liking lately? It's the song is
What's your go-to genre? Like what kind of genre?
I'll just rock and roll mostly, but also, sometimes it'll be rap or sometimes it'll be
Change it up. Yeah.
yeah, all kinds of things. Oh, here's a good one. God's Gonna Cut You Down by Johnny Cash.
Well, unfortunately, I don't know when that was released or I haven't heard that one yet, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it's old. It's Johnny
Yeah.
Cash.
Okay.
Another pretty good one though would be that's one I was just thinking of. It's a rock song. Oh, Sabotage by Beastie Boys.
Mm. Now the art, so all these
Well,
artists
that's
you're
kind of
naming,
a rock song.
yeah,
But
all
yeah,
all the artists you're naming are familiar, but you say the name of the song, and I'm like, But
You've definitely heard Sabotage at least once.
yeah, I've heard of the artist, and I'm sure I've heard the song. So,
Yeah. Um,
what
let's
is
see.
what's
But
your
yeah, something like that.
what's your pre-race day routine? So, like, what do you do
The
before your
day before a race,
yeah? Is there like a routine you do for every race right before it?
kind of. It depends a little bit on the race. It has to do with well, morning of a race. It's how early is it and how far do I have to drive, that
Yeah,
kind of thing. I'm actually pretty annoyed that my next race starts at 6 a.m. I'm like,
yeah,
why? The sun doesn't come up until 7. Why don't you just start it at 7? Now we have to carry lights and then ditch them. It's
yeah,
annoying. But anyway, I try to get everything ready the night before just so my morning routine can be nice and short. And so in the morning, I'm not worried about being late. I know where everything is. I just grab it and I go. So the day before the race is when I'll pick the running clothes and lay them out. If it's an ultra, I'll fill up all my drop bags and everything like that. I do sort of have a pre-race meal routine, but I'm a very boring, nerdy single guy who lives alone. So I pretty much have an everyday eating routine. I eat a lot of the
yeah,
same things over and over.
yeah,
So my pre-race day food is pretty much the same as every other day. We're pretty similar anyway. So generally speaking, in the morning, it'll be fruit, yogurt, and a little bit of oatmeal, just all mixed up in a bowl. Lunch will be just a big salad, and dinner, which I'll take particularly early the day before a race because I just want to get it down,
yeah,
is basically like rice, quinoa, and beans, and some more veggies tossed in there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, rice and beans, easy to digest, and grains and protein and all that good stuff, and relatively light, doesn't really like sit in your stomach too heavy.
yeah,
So yeah, that's what I'll usually eat. Morning of a race is usually like a cup of oatmeal, a handful of nuts, and a piece of fruit, and a sport drink. And I'll make sure I have that at least an hour and a half before gun time.
yeah,
Um, the day before a race, I don't run. In fact, usually 2 days before a race, I don't run. But I'll try to get some walking in,
yeah,
and I'll do every day. I do like 2 hours worth of, I just call them floor exercises, but like leg lifts and push-ups and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah, I do that like 2 hours a day normally,
yeah,
but the day before a race, I'll cut that down to like 20 minutes. I don't want to like, I'm not going for strength, the day before a race, but I do kind of still want to do it because I'm used to it. And I feel like it helps me just kind of limber up and stuff like that. So yeah, just get some walking in, do a little bit of like a minor amount of floor exercises, and some good stretching before you go to bed.
yeah,
But other than that, it's kind of just a normal day. I don't eat anything out of the ordinary. So
yeah.
yeah, rice and beans. That's my
Yep,
go-to.
rice and beans. That's the way to go.
Yep.
Yep. And last question, what do you love about running?
There's a lot to love about running. We alluded to this earlier, and I wish I had kind of said something then, but we'll say it now. One of the things I love most about running is you can do it pretty much whenever you want, wherever you want. You don't have to make a schedule with anyone else. Like if you want to like play basketball or something, I guess you can shoot hoops on your own a little bit, but if you want to like play any kind of game of basketball, you got to do it with someone. Or if you want to toss the frisbee or anything like that, almost any outdoor activity, or most, anyway, quite a few. I don't know. Anyway, quite a few. You have to do it with someone, and you kind of plan ahead. The other guy might cancel, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe they're busy when you're not, and you're busy when they're not, and all that, and it doesn't line up. But running, you can just do whenever the hell you want. Um, and in fact, if something comes up at your normal running time, maybe you can just go later. At some other time, you can change your schedule because no one else is depending on it. And you can go right out your front door. In fact, I find it very silly that people will drive somewhere and then go running. Like, why didn't you just run there?
Yeah,
I mean, I get it if you're like kind of treating yourself. Oh, I heard this trail is really cool. I'll do that like once a week or something. Okay, I get that.
yeah,
But for your normal run, just go. You don't have to go somewhere and then run. And it's quiet. Especially if you run on trails. That's what I like most about trail running. It's quiet. And in fact, I've described it many times as meditative. It's the one part of my day that, keep in mind, I'm a high school teacher. No one is asking me a bunch of stupid questions or bothering me about their grade or trying to turn something in late or anything like that. And so it's kind of, and I can do, and I'm not just sitting on my butt, I'm doing something, and yet I'm doing it on my own terms, on my own schedule. No one else is bugging me about it. And this is one other thing that is kind of, I don't know if it's not entirely unique to me, but slightly unique to me. Because I didn't start doing it until halfway through college, and I was never on a cross country team, and I've never had a coach of any kind. Uh, and all of my goals have just been self-made goals. Like, I want to do this, so I'm going to go do it. No one has ever told me I'm not good enough, nor made me feel like I'm not good enough. And I know that's done kind of intentionally or unintentionally, sometimes intentionally, other times. Like a band director, sometimes with the best intentions in mind, made me feel like I wasn't good enough. And well, okay, maybe I wasn't. I could have practiced more, but I have only ever had positive reinforcement when it comes to running. And I've always felt good about it. No one has ever made me feel bad about running. And that's because I discovered it on my own later in life. And so, and it sort of filled a void, like I mentioned. It helped me pull out of depression. And so I've really latched onto it as this like behavioral addiction kind of thing. But yeah, so to the short version of this very long answer, what do I love about it? You can do it whenever you want, wherever you want. It's quiet. It's me time. And it always makes me feel good. And even if a run went bad, if a run went really well, I go, that was fun. I'm so glad I did it. If a run goes really badly, I go, well, a good thing I at least got out there and did it. Can you imagine how bad I'd be if I didn't do it? So no matter if a run goes well or poorly, I'm always glad I did it at the end. So yeah, those are among the many things I like about running.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And it's actually quite interesting. You talked about how it's something that you're kind of addicted to, and it's really interesting because a lot of people that do run like crazy distances and are into endurance sports like very heavily, is a lot of them have addictive personalities. And so it's quite interesting to see what people use those addictive personalities towards, and it's always great to see them use it towards a sport like running or cycling or an endurance sport or something like that. And so, yeah, I thought that was interesting. So that I also have the same thing with running. I'm also addicted to it as well. And so I think there's a lot of trail and ultra runners that could say the same thing. And so it's cool to see, and it's cool to follow that as well. So, but with that, before we hop off, what's one piece of advice you could give the listener for them to apply to their running or maybe even to their life?
Hang in there. That's probably the biggest thing, really. Yeah, hang in there. More specifically, I would say, I kind of said this earlier. It's really about consistency, just small improvements, patience, really. Don't try to force anything, of course. But yeah, think of it almost like practicing an instrument. You just need to do it every day, a little bit every day, and make small improvements every day. And it's okay if you have a bad day. You're not going to literally get a little bit better every day. Sometimes you're just going to have a bad day, and that's fine. Just try to have less of them as time goes on. But stick to it. And for me anyway, it's really good to have like a plan. I have like a whole spreadsheet of like, these are the runs I'm going to do, and this, because I'm a organized kind of person. So if that's you, plan ahead and set little minor goals along the way. Like, this weekend I'm going to run this and this and this and this, and stick to it. Now, one other thing I'll stress though is not everyone has to be into running. Some people get into running because they want to get fit or they want to lose weight or whatever it is. And it doesn't stick because they hate running. And that's okay. It's okay to not like running. Maybe you like something else. Try something else then. I had a friend in college who tried running, tried going to the gym, hated it, tried swimming, hated it, and then finally started walking, just walked everywhere all the time. And she got in great shape. And you would walk across campus with her and you're going like, geez, she's just flying up the hill. And you're like, I was running marathons by that point, but it felt like she was leaving me in the dust when we walked to the cafeteria
Yeah.
because she just pushed up those hills like nobody's business, and in fact wasn't even noticing it. So you get in great shape a lot of ways, and it doesn't have to be the same way everyone else does. So if you don't like running, maybe try something else. Or if you kind of like running, but you're stuck in a bog, try doing something else. Maybe get into trail running. Or if you're into trail running, try road running. Or maybe just try different distances. Maybe you're not a marathon person, and that's fine. Maybe you are the type of person who could be a really good 10K runner or a really good 5K runner or something. So don't let someone else set your goals for you, I suppose, is the short version of that. Set your own goals and feel good reaching them.
Well, yep, that's a lot of good advice, and I appreciate that. And I actually learned a little bit from that too as well. So it
Okay.
was lots of good advice, and it was an honor having you on, Rob. And in a way, you're almost like a hidden gem in the running world, and it just blows my mind how you're not sponsored or people aren't looking into all these crazy things you're doing. And so it was really awesome to have you on. It was an honor, and um, for all the listeners listening, I'm gonna have his link to all his stuff below, and y'all could go check all his stuff out. His social media will be there, and all his little projects he has going on. And also, if there's any brands that want to sponsor him, I'm going to talk to him after, but we'll figure out a way to where if you want to do that, you can contact him. But other than that, it was an honor to have you on. I really appreciate you coming on to the Texas Outlaw Running Talk Show.